For this demo, I'm going to show you how to use tape as a resist. Now tape can only be used on bisqueware as a resist because it cannot stick to glaze. So you couldn't put a first layer of glaze on your bisque and then try to do a tape design because the tape just isn't going to stick to the glaze. So tape works great as a resist on bisqueware. I have some examples here of some tape designs that I have done. So this one I did, so you can see these shapes here, the gray shapes. Those were pieces of tape that I put on the piece. Then I dipped it in one glaze, let that glaze dry and peeled off the tape, and then dipped it in a second glaze. Same here, you can see some tape design lines that I made. You can see how it extends on the inside of the cup. So this was applied, these designs were applied to the bisque, and then I dipped it in a glaze and then just peeled the tape off. So this is just the raw clay body color, and then this is the glaze. So you don't have to use two glazes, you could just do the tape design and then dip it in one glaze, peel the tape off, and fire it. For this one, I cut out a bunch of circles in tape and applied those onto the bisque, dipped it in a glaze, peeled the circles off, and dipped it in a second glaze. And then here you can see I did the same thing. Some line taped designs, put them on the bisque, dipped it in one glaze, peeled the tape off, and in a second glaze. So I'm going to show you how to do a tape design on this big planter. You can see I have one here that is finished. So on here I did a tape design, and instead of using glaze, I used an underglaze. You could also use a wash or a stain. So you would apply your tape design, brush on a wash or a stain. In this instance, if you want to use glaze, you'd have to pour the glaze because this piece is too big to dip in a bucket. So this is the clay body color. That's where the tape design was applied. Then I brushed on the blue underglaze and peeled back the tape and fired it. So this is the underglaze and the clay body without any glaze over it. Okay? So let me show you some tricks to working with the tape. Because I want to create a design that could easily be taped from the top to the bottom fluidly, I have this wide roll of tape because I know I want to do kind of a larger lobed design, but you can also use the thinner tape. So to do this, I'm going to measure out about where I would want this to start and about where I'm going to have it end. And I'll just mark that with a Sharpie. Now it's really important that you put some lint onto the tape because we're going to be folding the tape over onto itself. So tape on tape, sticky on sticky. In order for it to not be stuck, so we can do this process, we need to apply some lint. So either on your shirt or your pants or your apron, you want to just stick the tape to your clothing or to something nearby that's going to put some lint on it. Then I hold the tape in between my knees because this is a big piece we're doing, and where that Sharpie line is, I'm going to fold this over and just press it down, and I'm going to keep going. pretty large form, so I'm gonna prep quite a bit of tape. I do this technique because it's really difficult to take just one thin strip of the tape and to try to cut a design on it. Normally the scissors get stuck and pull it and it tears. I've also tried putting the tape down and using an X-Acto, but this has been the best approach I have found when I want to do a repeated line from the rim to the bottom or some sort of design across the form. Now that you've prepped enough tape to satisfy your design, you could, if you wanted, draw a design within this space, in between these two lines if you'd like, or you could just grab your scissors and start to cut. So I'm going to do a lobe design to kind of mimic or repeat what's going on here around the base of my form. You could cut both sides, or you could keep one side straight if you wanted. So you can see I have this nice design here. So I could decide if I like it flat on one side and curved on the other, or if I want to round this side as well. And I kind of like it flat on one side, but I have also prepped another piece here. So on this one, I'll cut the curve on both sides, just so I have some options. And the nice thing about this is also usable. What you've cut off could also be used for a thinner line if you want to. So don't get rid of these. This blue tape is pretty pricey, so keep these, because if it doesn't work for this piece, it might be something that works for you on a smaller cylinder or a different piece that you make in the future or that you currently have waiting to be decorated. Okay, now that we have our tape cut and prepped, we can place our first edge down. And I usually go about 1 inch onto the inside, and it's totally up to you how far down you want to go on the inside of your form. And then as I unroll this, I'll just start to stick it onto the form. And then you can keep going all the way around with the same amount of space in between. You could space them out. You could just do one line on one side. That's totally going to be up to you to decide what you want to do. Okay, so I'm still just slowly but surely working my way around the form. Okay, so once you have your tape placed everywhere you want it, it's really important that you make sure the outer edges are sealed down so the pigment can't slip behind it. So either using your thumbnail or your fingernail on that outside edge, or you could use a rib to come across this and seal it down. You want to do that over all of the tape. I mean, at least the outside edges. Okay, now that you have the tape placed and secured everywhere you'd like it, it's time to add, in my case, my underglaze color, but you could also use a wash or a stain, or you could brush on a glaze. Or if you had a large bucket, you could pour over a glaze. Okay, so here I go. I'm just gonna start painting the underglaze on. I can paint right onto the tape. It's totally fine. And if you want this a nice opaque color, you're gonna wanna do 3 coats. if you don't mind seeing through and seeing the clay body a little bit, then you don't have to do the 3 coats. So I'm just quickly going around the whole thing and putting on a first coat. And then by the time I get back around, that should be dry and I can put on my second coat. Okay, after you have your desired amount of stain, wash, glaze, and or underglaze on, for me, I wanted a pretty opaque coverage, so I went ahead and did the 3 coats. As long as your underglaze where it's touching your bisque piece is dry, you can begin to peel the tape off. Sometimes it's hard to figure out where your tape started or stopped to peel it away. So I find it's nice to have a needle tool or an X-Acto in case you need to get under there and help peel it up. So I can see an edge right here. So I'm gonna start there. The tape is gonna still have some wet underglaze on it, so I like to keep a bucket of water to keep my fingers clean so I don't transfer fingerprints into the areas I don't want the underglaze. That's it. So I got all the tape off, and now you can proceed to get a sponge and clean up any areas that it might have got where you didn't want it, or you can just let it be and say what will be, will be. But thanks for watching. Try this out.